Welcome to Verses and Visions Creative Conversations, where creativity and purpose meet to inspire and uplift. I'm Cassidy Beck, your host, here to explore the stories of artists, dreamers, and changemakers who are walking in faith and using their unique gifts to make a difference. Each episode is a reminder that your vision, paired with God's purpose, can transform the world around you. Let's get started and spark some inspiration together.
At Verses and Visions, we're grateful for partners who support creativity, faith, and meaningful conversations. We're pleased to share a message from one of them.
Hey friends, before we jump into today's conversation, I've been thinking about those small, meaningful things that bring us together. For me, that's often sharing a bottle from my family's premium soda company, Soda Beers. Whether it's crisp ginger beer, smooth butterscotch beer, classic root beer, original apple beer, or apple beer 5, our low-calorie twist, each flavor is a small little reminder of home and of the simple joys. Okay, now let's dive in. I have been really looking forward to this conversation. I met Sue at LDS PMA, and I got to talk to her for a little bit about her book and her story. And this is something I've been really looking forward to. Sue, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
To tell you a little bit more about Sue McGhie-Troff is a contributor to the study guide, Miracles Have Not Ceased, Neither Have Angels Ceased to Minister Unto Men. Sue is an encourager to actively seek and confidently expect miracles in our lives. Through her own experiences, she knows that miracles are real, that Father in Heaven loves us and knows us and desires that we know him. Sue earned a degree in sociology and a master's degree in social work. She was an elementary principal for 9 years, a director of student services for 9 years, and a director of school services for 11 years, where she supervised 15 elementary schools. She served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Arcadia, California. She has been a speaker at youth conferences, firesides, and young women camps. So, Sue, let's just dive right into it. When you hear the word miracle, what's the first memory or feeling that comes to your heart?
Well, I think about that quote that was given by President Russell about miracles. He said to seek and expect miracles. So we should pray for and look for miracles in our lives. He said, the Lord will bless you with miracles if you believe in him, doubting nothing. Do the spiritual work to seek miracles. Prayerfully ask God to help you exercise that kind of faith. I promise that you can experience for yourself that Jesus Christ giveth power to the faint, and to them that have no might, he increases strength. Few things will accelerate your spiritual momentum more than realizing the Lord is helping you to move mountains in your life. So when I think of miracles, I think of the relationship that I have with Father in Heaven. And when you pray for or you look and see miracles in your life, that relationship grows closer and closer. And you know that he's in the details of the things that you need in your life.
Now, I'm remembering our conversation, and it was one that had made a true impact on me. I think it is miraculous how this book came to be. Will you tell us a little bit more about that?
I have a friend for about 30 years that had gathered miracles during her whole life. During that time, I had watched her gather miracles at conferences, at firesides, with friends and relatives, and she developed what she thought would go into a book. She died on Christmas morning of 2023, and she left me as the trust of her trustee and put some money in there for me to use to have this book published. I tried to find a publisher for 2 years, and I just couldn't find anybody. The first question was, well, where's the author? And I'd have to say she passed away, and they said, well, then we can't publish it. So I looked, and one day I was with a group of ladies from my ward and telling them about this. And they said, why don't you contact Mary Robin Publishing, Jane Ann Osborne? And I said, well, she's in our ward. Is she a publisher? And they said, yes. So I contacted her and sent her the book that Leon had put together. And she said, yes, we'd be happy to publish it, and started working on it. And as she worked on it, she could see that what we really needed to do was turn it into a study guide. And that's what they did. Kind of the interesting thing that they did with the study guide is they turned it into chapters that first express what a miracle is. A miracle is an extraordinary event caused by the power of God, and faith is necessary in order for that miracle to be manifested. This is how the chapters go. What is a miracle? A temporary increase of capacity, receiving instruction, receiving resources, extending something that was lost, healing, protection and deliverance, right time, right place, comfort, conversion, change of heart, parting of the veil, experiences with angels and departed souls. And what do you do when that miracle doesn't happen? At the end of those chapters, there's some study questions and some blank pages for people to think back on the miracles in their life and to turn this into kind of a miracle journal. Can you imagine having that in your hands with your other journals so that your kids and grandkids could look back and read the miracles in your life and the miracles that are contained in a study guide? It's been a real blessing for me, and I appreciate all the work that she put into it.
I just think that's so extraordinary, and I think what a unique situation that you were in, where this is something that you believe in, but this was something that a project that you kind of inherited. Was that difficult to find motivation to keep moving forward despite all the no's or the dead ends that you received?
Because I believe in miracles, and because Leona was on the other side of the veil, but kept pushing me on this side of the veil, and I found somebody, and it was a miracle. Because Mary Robin Publishing, they had kind of at that point run out of things to publish and run out of people that could pay them. And they were wondering whether they should go ahead with their company. So when I told them I could pay them the money that they needed to actually publish it, they said, yes, we'll go ahead. And as they did that, they're really doing well now. They've got several books that they're working on. So it was like a miracle for them too.
So your book, like the subtitle of the book is that miracles haven't ceased. What shifted in your life that moved you from hoping to miracles to like truly expecting miracles?
I think it was receiving miracle. The first miracle in the study guide is called Passport. And it's an experience that Leona and I had together. We had made plans to go to the Holy Land for a long time. And finally, that day arrived. And it was on a December 30th morning, 1992. And it had never snowed heavier than I can remember or that she could remember. And it came down all the day before and all that night. We had called a friend to pick us up at the airport. And when she arrived, she said, the freeways are closed. We're going to have to go the back way to get there. And when we made the plans, we thought we should take her oldest brother, Wendell, with us. His wife had just passed away. He'd had a difficult operation and his eyes were failing. So we invited him to go. And he called Leona that morning and said, the shuttle that I hired will be coming about 2 hours earlier. And Leona said, good, we'll meet you at the airport. So our driver drove all the back roads going around wrecks and slide offs, but we made it to the airport safely. And as we walked in, Wendell was there. He was waiting for us. And we hugged and we were so glad we were all there together to start this adventure. So we turned in our luggage at the counter and then started up to the desk to check in. On our way, Leona asked, do you have your passports? And I looked at my purse and said, yep, here's mine. And Wendell was an international traveler. So it never occurred to us that he wouldn't have his. And he said, no, kiddingly. And then he reached into his pocket and said, oh, I don't have it. I left it in Provo on the dining room table. and our hearts just sunk. We called our friend back that had driven us to the airport and asked her if she'd come and pick him up and drive him back to Provo and pick up his passport. Now, by this time, it was 8:45, and the plane was scheduled to take off at 10 o'clock. But we knew that Father in heaven could help us because we had prayed for him to go with us. So she came and picked him up, started for the airport, and the people at the desk asked us to wait in the lobby and watch for Wendell so we could identify him. And he said, if he gets here, we'll put him in a wheelchair and jet him up the concourse. And then he stopped and said, that is, if he makes it back. So we waited and waited. And about 10 to 10, they said, you're going to have to run for the plane because you can't wait any longer. You'll miss it too. As we left, Leona looked back and another blizzard had started. And as we went up the concourse, she thought, I wonder if this is the answer to our prayers. I wonder if this will stop us from leaving. When we got onto the plane and we took our seats and the pilot announced, please take your seats. We'll be taking off. But when we looked out the windows, it was a total whiteout. You couldn't even see the wings. So we sat there for about 20 minutes. And he said, there's going to be a 20-minute delay. It's really backed up. And all the planes are backed up for de-icing. And about another 20 minutes went by. Leona went to the door and asked the flight attendant if she could go down and call and check to see where Wendell was. And she said, yeah, that's probably a good idea. They may have decided not to come because this weather's so bad. So she started on her way. And as she went, she noticed the cockpit was open. So she went to the cockpit to talk to the pilot and co-pilot navigator. And she said to them, we had been planning this once in a lifetime trip for a long time. And my brother Wendell needs to go with us because of the problems. The co-pilot said, do you really believe that all of this has taken place just to have this plane wait for your brother? And Leona said, yes, I do. And the co-pilot looked at her and said, how can you believe in that kind of miracle? And Leona said, a while back in my life, I had a tumor on my vocal cord. It stopped me from talking. And I had my brother Jay give me a priesthood blessing. Heavenly Father promised me at that time that I would be able to speak. And now, you see, I can speak, and I'm better. Because of that miracle and many others in my life, I know that Father in heaven can create miracles if we believe in him, doubting nothing. The co-pilot eyes got big, and he was very interested. He said, if your brother makes this flight, I want to see him. So she took off down the concourse to see if Wendell was coming and if he had arrived yet. When she got there, she asked the front desk, could she make a phone call? And they said, that won't be necessary. He's here. He'll be coming in the door. He came in the door and they were so happy as they greeted each other. And she told him that the plane was still there, but it hadn't taken off. Well, they started up the concourse, and he told her how hard the trip was in the car, that the driver that we had asked to take him had kept the car on the road despite very many difficulties, people sliding off, wrecks, all kinds of problems. But she drove, and when it looked like she was going to slide off the road, she got the car under control and got it back on the road. He said, I know that Father in heaven was with us and helped me make it back. It's a good thing she went down to meet him too, because he was so excited that the plane was still there. He left his carry-on with all of his medication in it. So he had to run back down and get it. But by then, They weren't in any hurry. They knew that he was going to be able to go on the plane with us. So as she came back and came through the door, the flight attendant was very happy that he made it. And she took him to the cockpit and introduced him to the co-pilot. He was gracious and welcomed him on board. The pilot again just grunted. But then as we were about to leave the cockpit, Leona turned to the pilot and said, "We'll be taking off now, soon. This is my brother, and he's here now." And the pilot said, "This blizzard that we've got, we won't be taking off anytime soon. I don't know when we'll leave." During the time that we were waiting for Wendell, I talked with several of the passengers that had the same tour badge on that we did and told them about the situation and asked them for their prayers. So as we went into the plane, people were clapping and cheering. And Wendell said, "What's that about?" Fiona said, "I'll tell you later." Everyone was happy that that had happened, and we could tell. We took Wendell to his seat and got him all adjusted. And then Leona said to me, "I'm going to go back in the restroom so I can kneel down and pray and thank Father in heaven for bringing him back safely." So she went into the restroom and prayed. And as she came out of the door, the pilot said, "Please take your seats. We've been cleared for takeoff." So we went and sat down and knew that we were prepared now to go to a land where Christ was born, where he grew strong, and where he performed miracles, he healed the sick, and he performed one of the greatest miracles of all, the atonement and resurrection. And we are grateful for the preparation that Father in heaven had given us. That's why I believe in miracles. Stuff like that happens all the time.
That's an incredible story. You said that that's the first story of the book, and it just is very incredible. So, you've spent decades of your life serving children and families in schools. How do you see God's hand working quietly in those everyday places?
I had an experience one morning with the first grade girl. She came to school late, and her class was going to the zoo that morning, and she'd missed the bus. And I started to contact the second grade teachers to see if any of them could take her in the classes. She said, "I only ate 2 pieces of cereal, and then I hurried as fast as I could." She was in charge of getting herself to school every morning. And as I looked for a place for her to stay that day, the Spirit said to me, "Susan, this little one needs to go to the zoo." I put her in my car, and we started up to the zoo. And she talked about the morning and getting her brother off to school and how bad she wanted to go to the zoo. And as we headed up there, the thought occurred to me, how am I going to find her in her classes? There's a million buses up there on a zoo day. And I don't know what I'm going to do. Father in heaven, help me find them. I pulled up in front of the entrance to the zoo, and her class was getting off their bus. I took her over and put her hand in her teacher's hand. And on the way home, thank Father in heaven for his help. I had what I believed was a gift during the time that I was a principal. I could discern whether a child was lying to me or not. I could talk through the problem that they were having in their life. It was a wonderful gift. And it helped me throughout the time that I worked with those elementary kids.
That's incredible. And I really like earlier you were talking about the definition of miracles and you were kind of going through different ones. And I love that as a principal, how helpful that gift and that miracle would be. And I like how expansive that list of the possibility of miracles was. So tell us a moment where you absolutely knew without question that heaven was aware of you personally.
When I got home from my mission, I decided I wanted to go on the BYU survival experience. So that is a month experience going 300 miles in the Utah desert. So I signed up for that and went on that experience. It's 50 people, 25 guys and 25 girls. I had a great many experiences on that trip. But one of the most memorable for me was when we'd split up into a group of four for the girls. And we'd been instructed by the leaders to follow the contour maps and to stay together as a group. As we went, followed the contour maps, we came to a river with sharp rocks and steep cliffs on both sides. Well, we went along in that river, and the further we went, the more the fact that I was 5'2" and had to hold my back roll above my head, it got harder and harder. And as my arms got more tired and more tired, I thought there must be an easier way to do this. So I started looking at the sides of the cliff, and my back roll had my possible bag, my flint, my steel. If that got wet, I wouldn't have a way to keep myself warm or cook any food. So I had to keep it dry. I started seeing handholds and footholds going up the cliff. And I thought, I bet I can just climb up this cliff and then go to the end and wait for everybody else to come. I put that backpack on my back and started up. And I had handholds and footholds all the way up. So I kept on going up and up until I got about 5 to 7 feet. And I ran out of handholds and footholds. I had one foot on the side of that cliff. Now, what do you do when you're in that situation? I looked down to see if I might be able to climb back down, but I couldn't tell if I'd come up straight, so I didn't know exactly where the footholds and handholds were. I thought maybe I can drop into the river, but I was afraid I'd hit one of those rocks and then I'd be in real trouble. Not that I was in trouble at the situation. There's only one thing you can do, but I didn't want to do it. I knew I had to pray, but I had been disobedient. I decided to go it alone, and now I was alone. And it's hard to ask Father in heaven for help when you haven't done what you were supposed to do. But it humbled me, and I didn't have a choice. So I prayed for help. I feel like I leaned against the side of that cliff for an hour. In reality, it wasn't that long. But I didn't know how he would take care of me, but I knew he would somehow. In a few minutes, somebody came walking along the top of that cliff and looked over where I was and said, "Hey, Sue, what you doing down there?" I was trapped against the side of that cliff. She didn't have any ropes or anything, so we made a plan, and she took off pieces of her clothing, and we tied them all together as tight as we could and made sure that they would reach where I was at. She laid down and then put that clothing where I could reach it. I got a hold of it, and she got a hold of it as tight as we could, and then she started to pull. And I had enough grip on the rocks to pull myself, my weight, up the side of the cliff and over the top. But when I got to the top, we hugged each other and cried and prayed. And I thanked her for listening to the Spirit and for following the directions and coming back. That night, I talked with Father in heaven for a long time and told him how thankful I was for his answer to my prayer and how much I appreciated the atonement, the power of forgiveness. And I would try in my life to do better with obedience and doing the things I was supposed to do.
What a beautiful story.
We'll return to today's conversation in just a moment.
You know how much I love sharing stories that inspire faith and hope. I'm excited to tell you about my new children's book, Sheep Chronicles Baptism. It's about Joshua, a curious boy with big questions about baptism, and the parable of a lost sheep named Shannon, shared by his wise grandpa. It's been such a joy to write this story, and I can't wait for you and your family to read it together.
Now, back to the episode.
I think that there are people that feel like they just are never seeing miracles, and that like miracles are something that other people experience, but not them. What would you say to them, and how would you, what do you feel like they might be overlooking?
I think the key to miracles is listening to a prompting, whether you think it's the spirit or not, just listening. When I was on my mission, we had come out from doing our clothes. We got in the car and the prompting came, go to the front of the car. That seemed like a strange thing, but I got out and went to the front of the car and there was a $50 bill. And we went into the store and left messages about how to contact us. And we went home. And 2 weeks later, I found out that my mom was short on her paycheck and the rent was due. And it was exactly $50. It's things like that when you listen to the Spirit and you don't know why, and you don't find out, sometimes you never find out, that are miracles. Just going around to the front of that car, that's a miracle. Father in heaven knows what's ahead. He knows what's going to happen and what you need. And so with the Spirit, He prepares you for what's ahead if you listen and follow it. I sure learned that on the side of that cliff, but I needed to listen.
So, how would you say you balance faith and action where you are seeking miracles, but you're not trying to force outcomes?
I think it's important for you to know that Father in heaven answers prayers and things we seek for in His own way and in His own time. One day I was sitting in Relief Society and they passed around a sign-up sheet to sing in the women's chorus for women's conference in the conference center. And I looked at the date and I could see that my husband and I had already planned a time to go out of town. So I passed it on. And then when I came home, I had the impression I needed to sign up for that. So I called and there was one spot left and I took the spot. I didn't know why I needed to do that. And we had to change our plans. I talked to my husband, Arnold, about it. And he said, that's fine. Go ahead if you feel that's important. So that's what I did. And as we went to rehearse, we found out we were singing the song, The Lord is My Light. And that song has meant a lot to me. About 6 years earlier, at that time, I had breast cancer. And that song always came to my mind, The Lord is My Light. It always provided comfort to me. And I really appreciated it. Going through the breast cancer, the operation, chemo, radiation, and medication was hard. There's some people out there that will know this. They'll identify this. One of the hardest things for that was when I found out I was going to lose my hair. I think I cried harder about that than anything else. But as I went through that, one of the verses of the song says, the Lord is my light. Then why should I fear? By day and by night, His presence is near. So during the time that I had signed up to sing that song, I'd also gone to a checkup to my oncologist. And he took a test for calcium and some other things. And then he came in and said, Sue, do you know what a PET scan is? And I said, yes, I looked it up on the internet. And he said, well, we're going to give you a PET scan. And I said, well, doctor, what are you looking for? And he said, Sue, I think you have leukemia. But we won't know until we get the PET scan. I'm going to sign you up for that and then we'll meet again. We left his office that day, and Arnold and I rode down on the elevator and hugged and cried. I told him how frightened I was. We went home, and I pondered on something that I pondered on a long time, especially during cancer. Why is it that some people live and some people die, even though usually they live or usually they die? So I knelt down and asked Father in heaven, am I going to die? Am I appointed unto death? And the answer came no. And then I found this scripture in Doctrine and Covenants 42:48. And it shall come to pass that ye shall be healed if you have faith in me to be healed, unless you're appointed unto death. So if you ask Father in heaven for something, and unless there's something else that's supposed to happen in your life, then he will intervene. That's why some people die and some people live. Now, he had told me I wasn't going to die. So I knelt down again and said, if I'm not going to die, then before I get the PET scan, can I be healed? So I won't have to go through chemo again. And I didn't get an answer. Then I asked Arnold to give me a blessing. He gave me a blessing and said, Father in heaven is aware of this, and he's in charge of it. He knows what's going on. He knows how you feel. You need to have faith. And you need to have peace. I tried to do that. And the next time we went to rehearsal, the song that we sang, The Lord is my light, the second verse, the Lord is my light, though clouds may arise, faith stronger than sight looks up through the sky. If there ever was a cloud in my life, it was the thought that I had leukemia. I was on the way to work, and that verse of that song came into my mind again. And I thought, what kind of faith is faith stronger than sight? What kind of faith would that be? And then immediately came into my mind the woman that had the issue of blood for 12 years. And then she thought, if I can only reach out and touch the hem of his garment, I will be healed. That stretch of faith to touch the garment was all that she believed she needed to be healed. And she was. And I thought, yeah, but she was there. She could feel the hem of the garment in her hand. And immediately, this thought came to my mind. Susan, I'm just as close now as I was then. Exercise your faith. Let me heal you. Well, the sun came out right at that point, and I finished driving to work, praying that I would know how to get that kind of faith in my life, that I could be healed. The next week, I got a call from the doctor. Pulled off the road so I could take it. And he said, Susan, everything looks fine. And then he stopped and said, but you already knew that, didn't you? And I said, yes, doctor, I did. I'm so grateful for Father in heaven knowing what we need and preparing the way for what's ahead. I think having faith in knowing that because he knows what's ahead and because he loves us, that the God of the universe will give us the experiences that we need to get through anything in our lives, no matter how hard it is, and no matter how dark that it may look.
Again, what a miracle and how phenomenal that you were focusing on singing that song and just the power of those lyrics in a moment that you deeply needed the power of those lyrics. It's extraordinary. You've had some incredible miracles in your life, but is there a small one that changed you just as much as a big dramatic one has?
My mom was a great woman of faith. She used to fast and pray for me once a week. I haven't always been steady in my life, in my knowledge of Father in heaven and miracles. And one day I was with my friends and I had the distinct impression that I needed to go home. I needed to change what I was doing. And that impression, I believe, was brought on by my mom. And I went home and things began to change. And just knowing that my mom was praying for me, that changed my life. It changed the direction that I was going. And I guess that's a small miracle brought on by a mom with a lot of faith.
So I like to talk to people about kind of some self-doubt and feelings that they've had about not being enough or feelings of imposter syndrome. Is that something that you experience in your life?
It's always pretty much who I was. And if I wasn't active, then I wasn't active. But I experienced a lot of self doubt when I first went on my mission. I had only been active for about 6 months. And there were a lot of temptations that came. I went to California. And so, you know what California is like now. Well, when I went on my mission, there were a lot of things in California that were happening then. And I had to overcome a lot of things that I didn't think that I could do. It was like the cliff. If I didn't pray about it and get some help, I wasn't going to stay. I couldn't stay. But every time I pray about it, eventually, maybe not immediately, but eventually, then something would happen that would turn things around and I would stay. I would drive down the road in my area, and when I was very first out, I'd see help signs and for rent signs. And I think, well, let's see, I'll sneak out at night and I'll go get a job at that place, and then I'll go rent whatever that place is that's for rent. And then that night, as I was praying, the Spirit would say, That's, that's a plan. That's one plan. Of course, you can never go home again. You wouldn't see your parents or anybody again. So you could do that. And when that would happen, then it would change my plan. And I'd stay and things would start to turn around. I think those doubts, and I know that people that have them, I know they're real and I know they're very difficult. But I think those doubts are brought on by the destroyer. And I think that he's real. And he has the capacity to destroy through thoughts, marriages, the relationship with Father in heaven. He teaches us and convinces us that we shouldn't pray. It's a waste of time. And when he starts doing that, we have to fight it. Because if we don't, he can succeed.
I hear you saying that like staying close to the spirit is really important. What's something simple that helps you feel closest to heaven?
I like to read the scriptures every morning, especially the Book of Mormon. And then I like to pray someplace where I won't be disturbed and I can pray out loud. One of the things I've recently experienced is I believe the destroyer trying to stop me from praying by saying, "You're saying the same thing. So why pray? Because it's just repetitive. So I made a determination to spend more time, devote more time, and to pray with more urgency, more real things. My patriarchal blessing says, nothing will be denied to you if you desire it in righteousness. And if our Heavenly Father sees it, will aid in your development and progression. And that's been true. It says, talk to Him as you would your earthly father, and He will speak to you. He will tell you what He will have you to do. And once this has been done, follow His will explicitly, without deviation, without question. That's what happens. And when I pray with that kind of determination and that kind of closeness, knowing that the God of the universe knows who I am, that brings us closer together. And He answers me. And I know it. And I know that I know it.
So, has there ever been a season or a time that where you've prayed for a miracle, but you didn't get the answer that you were hoping for? And what, if so, like, what did you feel like God was teaching you in that moment?
I had vestibular neuritis in 2009. And that's when there's some kind of nodule on your inner ear. And it causes you to be dizzy and nauseous. You can't drive. It's really hard to sit up. You just feel like throwing up all the time. And it just started. One day I didn't have it, and the next day I had it. And so I prayed about it, and I asked for blessings. And my husband gave me a blessing, but he didn't heal me, he just blessed me with comfort. My son-in-law would come. He'd get in his suit and get all cleaned up and come over determined to bless me to get better. And the Spirit would tell him, no, you can't do that. So this went on from July when I got it until through November and Christmas until January. So I couldn't go to work. I was basically sick in bed all that time. I prayed and prayed that I would get better, and it didn't get better. And then in January, he came, my son-in-law did, again. I was dressed up and prayed, and he gave me a blessing. And the Spirit said, okay, now. So he blessed me that I would get better. And from that time, I started to get better. And I knelt down and said, Father in heaven, why? Why did I have to be ill all this time? What was I supposed to learn? And the Spirit said, would you still love me if I said no? And I had to ponder that for a long time. Would I? If I didn't ever get better?
When you were prompted with that question, what feelings did you have? Like, how did you answer that?
It took 2 or 3 days to ponder that until I went to Him in prayer and said, yes, I would. I know that you would take care of me. I now know that it'll come to pass if you have the faith to be healed, and you're not appointed unto death, you shall be healed. So that was the lesson I was supposed to learn. And I felt like I learned it. We sometimes have to say when we ask for something and it doesn't happen, your will be done. And I trust you. And I trust that the future and what's ahead. And this is some kind of preparation. So developing that trust with Father in heaven is another factor that's really important. Because sometimes the things you ask for won't be answered in the way that you think or the timing that you think. They're just not. But we still have to trust him.
I think that's something that I would definitely add my thoughts to that about like being a parent and when your child requests something that you know would not be in their best interest. Sometimes like a yes is easier, but the no is the thing that they need. And it is difficult to say no, but because you love them, it is more important. And I can see Heavenly Father wanting to like it would be easier to be like, "You are healed." And because that's what you wanted, and I'm sure that our Father in heaven wants to help you in the best way possible, and building that trust was more important in that moment. I know when I'm in those circumstances, it's hard for me as a parent, and I wonder if I mean, God has had a lot of experience with this, and so he's really good at it. But I wonder if that's also, like, a little bit hard for him too, to withhold that, but to be like, "This is what is most needed in that moment."
I'm sure it is because my patriarchal blessing and because he knew I needed that kind of trust that I would have to build that in my life. And that has helped me do it. So he knew that was one way to help me do it.
If someone listening is quietly praying for a miracle right now, what would you wanna say directly to them?
Don't stop praying. The God of the universe knows who you are. I know this. I know it. Don't give up. Don't stop. Trust that Father in heaven knows what you're going through, and he will help you through it. He may not answer it the way you want, but there's something that he wants you to learn. And in the end, you will be able to learn it, and it will be of help to you, not only now on this earth, but for eternity. Don't stop. Don't give up. Keep praying. Whether you're tired, whether you're discouraged, just don't stop. Stopping is what the destroyer wants. He wants to interfere with your relationship with Father in heaven.
So where can people find your book? How can we support you?
The book is on Amazon and it's coming out shortly in Spanish. Mhm. I really like going to the conference, the LDS conference. I think that's a great place to be. I would love to be on some more podcasts. I love to talk about miracle, and there's a lot more miracles to talk about. I really appreciate your letting me do this, Cassie. I really do.
Thank you. So, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate you being with us today.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks so much for spending time with me today. If you're looking for a family-friendly, refreshing drink, check out Soda Bears, my family's premium soda company. And for a faith-filled story to share with the little ones, don't miss Sheep Chronicles Baptism. Both are available on Amazon. Until next time, keep creating with purpose and faith.